Lux your way with the Lux Cravings boxes from Taco Bell. There's the classic $5 box, the indulgent $7 box, and a whole new obsession in the $9 box, the Flamin' Hot Grilled Cheese Burrito. Try the Lux Cravings boxes at Taco Bell today.
Hey Bronco Nation, this is Boise State football wide receiver Ben Ford. I've had to face some setbacks on the field this past season, but toughness isn't about staying down. It's about getting back up. I am proud to represent Lithia Ford of Boise, where you can find the largest selection of Ford trucks that are built tough and, like me, handle the hits and keep pushing forward. Come check out the incredible inventory and competitive pricing at Lithia Ford of Boise. And when you buy here, you're not just getting a truck, you're supporting Boise State athletics and Lithia Ford NIL partnerships. Come see us at Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
Find your sun with Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea. Made with real iced tea and real vodka. Cold, refreshing, and made for moments like these all year long. Let the good times cruise with Sun Cruiser.
As sports fans, we may cheer for different teams, but there's one thing that we can all agree on. We want the game to be big. And with 3 levels, 30 cabanas, a 143-foot screen, 6 clean pools, and endless cold drinks, it doesn't get any bigger or any better than Stadium Swim in Las Vegas. All sports, all seasons. It's more than a pool deck. Stadium Swim. It's the only thing like it in the world.
The final buzzer has sounded on another night of basketball out west. And it's time to break down the action with Tom Mosser on Another Night Out West, presented by Circa Sports. Heading to Las Vegas for our guys' weekend or to watch the Pac-12 or Mountain West basketball tournaments? Make sure to stay at Circa Las Vegas and watch all the action at Stadium Swim, where the sports are on 365 days a year. While you're there, check out the world's largest sports book and make sure to eat at Barry's Prime Steakhouse. Book your reservations today at circalasvegas.com. Another Night Out West features interviews, analysis, opinions, and more from the Pac-12, the Mountain West, the WCC, and beyond. If it's happening out west, we're talking about it on Another Night Out West. Subscribe on YouTube and don't miss a show at youtube.com/@Another Night Out West. Did your team just get a big win? How about a bad loss? Come discuss it with us. Send us a comment or question in the ICCU YouTube chat or leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/BNN.
Like you said, he's in big moments, ton of experience.
Amazing arena. We have the altitude. Like you said, we have.
Now let's go to the Sun Cruiser Studios and join Coach Tom Mosser for Another Night Out West on Bronco Nation News.
What's up, everybody? Look at that fancy new intro put together by BJ, including the fresh clips from last week, featuring coaches Olin and Crispin of New Mexico.
So new that I forgot to. It's so new I forgot to edit out their voice there. You can hear it. It'll be good. It'll be better for next time. But at least we got the right show name and we're working on it.
That's right. Freshly debuted right there for all of you as we start another night out west here on Sunday, July the 19th. I'm your host Tom Mosser. BJ Rains, of course, is alongside for the ride tonight. Big show ahead. BJ, how we doing?
Well, I'm doing great, and it's a Sunday night. I think it's acceptable here to support the sponsors and crack open a Sun Cruiser here. We got the half and half tonight, so shout out Sun Cruiser. And yours is more of a little prop there. We need to get you next Sunday to actually enjoy one with me. But
we'll do. Well, I've had the same one in here.
Excited for the show tonight. Appreciate Sun Cruiser, our studio sponsor, Circa. And it's funny that we got 2 great interviews, and we were going to try to pull them off as being live tonight, Tom, even though they weren't. And our first 2 questions are, of course, people wanting us to ask questions to them. And so that kind of backfired tonight.
Yeah, it's funny. Appreciate the questions, guys. Steve, Robbie.
We may or may not have already asked those. Just you have to wait and see.
We oftentimes have our guests on live. We caught up with Coach Rice and Coach Walberg a few days ago, earlier in the week. So, yeah, as BJ said, let's see what was discussed and what we can talk about that stuff. as BJ said, Circa, Sun Cruiser, appreciate the sponsors. Circa, right in the middle of things right now. Summer, place to be, stadium swim.
Oh, dude. Betting. The World Cup today. I saw the video they had of stadium swim at the World Cup. Oh, man.
I was going to ask you, did you watch the World Cup game, BJ?
I did, but I wish I was at Circa, man. They had the sports book going, stadium swim. That was I'm
sure they did.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. But yeah, no, Tom, appreciate you having me on, man. This summer series has been a lot of fun. I've been seeing a lot of you lately. We've been talking to a lot of these coaches and scheduling these interviews for the next few weeks. And we got some really good guests coming up. We got Leon Rice, Boise State tonight. Vance Walberg coming up, Fresno State, which you may say, you know what, Fresno State, Vance Walberg. I'll tell you what, man, we did record the interview earlier this week, and I really enjoy talking to Vance Walberg. I think he's a very interesting guy, and we got into the sports gambling stuff because I'm doing a Lindy's Magazine story on sports gambling, and he was not afraid to name names and go pretty in-depth into all that. I was like, wow, does he? So you definitely want to miss the Vance Walberg interview. We'll discuss that. Leon Rice on his team, Boise State as well. So we talked Mountain West coaches last week. Joe Crispin, Air Force, Eric Olin, New Mexico. You can go back and listen to those. Tonight we'll go a pair of Pac-12 coaches in Leon Rice and Vance Walberg. And then we got, what do we got coming up? We got Sundance Wicks, Wyoming, Colorado State's Ali Farokhnamesh, I think, next week. And then we got Josh Pastner, UNLV. We got Bryce Drew, Grand Canyon, I believe, for the week after that already lined up. And then I think we're going to be recording or at least talking here in the near future with Utah State's new coach, Ben Jacobson, as well as Tim Miles from San Jose. Yep. And so we're rolling here, man. The next 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to be talking to 2 coaches a show, and it's a lot of fun here on a. You know, they like talking. I love hearing you talk for an hour by yourself, Tom. But if we can get some other guests and players on here the next month, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And excited about this show, building this show. But we got to get to 1,000 before I forget, Tom. We got to start pushing. We're at like 639 YouTube subscribers. Some of you are watching on the Bronco Nation News YouTube channel right now. You got to switch over and start watching on the Another Night Out West channel. It's literally youtube.com/Another Night Out West. Subscribe to our channel. Help us get to 1,000. That's when we can start making Tom some more money. Once we push past 1,000, and we can start monetizing the channel. So tell your friends, subscribe, hit that like button down there, subscribe. And Another Night Out West, you see it at the bottom of the screen there. That's the YouTube channel. Help us get over 1,000. And yeah, every Sunday, 8 o'clock Mountain Time, join us. 2 coach interviews for the next 5-6 weeks. And then the cool thing about this is, Tom, we've already been kind of planting the bug with these coaches about coming on again during the season. So I think it's going to be an awesome to kind of roll this right into the season.
They seem like they're all for it. A lot of good stuff right there from you, BJ. They are all for it. And mainly it's because if they're coming on, they know they're coming on after a win. So I'm sure if you ask them, they do it almost every night because it means that they're winning games, right? So I think that's worth it for them to sacrifice, especially for some of them that don't have the success that maybe other ones do. BJ mentioned a lot of the coaches. We're trying to get everybody on here. We're not picking and choosing. We're trying to get coaches from all the coaches from both conferences, Mountain West and Pac-12. Some are maybe later. Some were willing to come on earlier. So we're not picking and choosing. We're trying to get everybody on here. You mentioned the ones that we've already talked to. We have coming up soon. So a lot of good stuff. And look, it's the off season, but we can pick some things up from some of these coaches and maybe what they're going to do differently on the floor this year. Maybe some guys that you didn't know a little bit about, maybe some things philosophically or schedule wise, or you never know what you're going to get from these coaches when you talk. And you've been through that before, just not from this show, but when you do your reporting preseason for Lindy's, you get good insight from them. And they're certainly good to talk to, even if it's just for 15, 20 minutes. So,
well, I would say this, Tom, too, like in the summer, they're a little more laid back and jovial. And some of these coaches have been joking with us about Circa and about all kinds of stuff. I mean, I was, looking back at some of the stuff, and I know we're going to talk to some more coaches in the next few weeks, but I think they're in a much more relaxed state than a quick, 4-minute thing on the SID's iPad after a win or whatever. So we're getting to really talk to these guys, and I'm excited about this, and I'm excited about the direction of the show, and excited for tonight, man. Going to be fun.
Yeah, it should be. They don't feel the pressure right now. They always feel pressure, but yeah, when after a game, they're they want to talk about it, but they're already thinking about the opponent 3 days later. They don't have a lot of time to rejoice in a road victory by 5. They're worried about the game against a team that's tied with them in the conference that they're going to play on the weekend, and they have to travel again and play, in a rough environment. So, it's a lot more, as you pointed out, laid back, but some good stuff coming up here. And as BJ, as you said it, you guys that watch weekly, even when I say I'm going to be on here for 45 minutes, it turns into an hour and 15 because I can talk about anything. You guys keep coming with the comments, which is fantastic, and we roll that stuff right over into longer dialogue. But there's no doubt, I think this is fantastic stuff and access to have these head coaches of these, big time programs here coming on to join us. And so we're going to get to 2 more in a little bit. As you guys can see over there on the right side of the screen, first thing I want to talk about just for a little bit on the rundown is eligibility. And so you might say, well, what is that? The news has been a little bit slow, as you would expect at this time of the calendar, right? It's a lot of, there's been recruiting stuff going on. Vegas has had the summer league, but really from an NCAA perspective, the one thing that's taken place now in the last week or two, or continued to develop, is this 5-5 rule being exploited. All right. And so we talked about it on here a month-ish, maybe 6 weeks ago, how we're going to have this 5-5 rule, which at the time seemed to kind of put things, okay, here we go. If you're a senior this past season, you're kind of screwed. Sorry, but you're screwed. Moving forward, guys will get 5 years. Before this past year, you got 5 years. Just in this 1 year, sorry, not sorry, sorry. Well, as nobody should be surprised to find out, people lawyered up, and it just going to start a whole nother process. Just when you thought, okay, we kind of have some semblance of like consistency here, it goes off the rails. And it started with a few guys in Ohio, including some former Mountain West guys that seem to be going to play for Coach Calhoun now at Cincinnati, including MJ Collins, right, an all-conference player here this past season. And now it's turning into like just every state is having guys sue, including former Mountain West Player of the Year, Big Ten all-conference player, Lobo legend Donovan Dent. And so this thing is just.
By the way, he's going to end up at Gonzaga, isn't he?
That's
seems too perfect.
So we can talk about that in a second, but that's a likely destination. But before we get into the specifics of things like Dent, what is your like big? You always like to ask the big, like, what's your big picture take? What do you make of this whole situation here? Because it was messy, then it seemed to be like, oh, we have some type of clarity, and now it's trending towards messy again.
Well, I think I saw a tweet from Jeff Goodman where he's like, let's just get it over with and declare everybody eligible for 1 more year. And because it's going to happen at some point in November anyway, when a judge, we'll see what happens. But as soon as that rule came out and everyone said, you're getting the 5-5, but it's not retroactive, it's going to start next year. I get why the NCAA tried to do that. It would just be less messy and rosters construction and NIL. And you're going to, guys that thought they had a spot, maybe they only have 15 spots. And now all these guys are back in the pool of players you can take. But you knew in this day and age, if you don't like something, you just go find a judge that'll give you a ruling for it. And so you knew this was going to happen. And you already had the NIL, the NAIA, like non-Division I guys that were trying to get the extra year, the Pavia ruling and all that. So that was a different kind of ruling. Like I was talking to, I'll just give you a quick story. Like I covered Boise State, obviously. So Javen Buchanan is out of eligibility, and I saw that he entered the transfer portal, and everyone's like kind of freaking out. I'm like, well, he doesn't have any eligibility left. He's done. And like he commits to West Virginia and takes a visit there, and all the West Virginia reporters and everybody, like, no one is mentioning that he doesn't have any eligibility left. They're all, oh, great kid. Oh, he's going to be the starting, whatever. And I'm like, he doesn't have any eligibility left. Like it was not even mentioned that he'd have to apply for a waiver or he'd have to try. Like they were just like, a matter of fact, like he's a key member of their team. And so I actually talked to Ross Hodge, the coach at West Virginia for Lindy's, like a couple days ago. And I said, well, actually, I cover Boise State randomly, so I'm just curious about Buchanan. Like, are you expecting to have him? And he's like, oh yeah, we expect to have him. And I'm like, how? He goes, well, just all these other rulings that have happened. He goes, I just don't see how one of those rulings wouldn't apply to him, and he would eventually get eligible. And so, he's like, maybe he's nervous deep down inside, but he made it almost seem like, yeah, we expect to have him when the year comes. So it's like, and at that point, like maybe Boise State would have tried to keep him if they would have thought they were under the impression that he had nothing left.
Yeah.
He entered the portal. Boise State, in a similar boat to a lot of Mountain West Pac-12 schools, where, as you know, Tom, they don't have the budget to some of these schools, and so if they're going, if Javen Buchanan wants just say $500,000, that's a fifth or sixth of their entire budget, and so they can't give that to him and then not be sure if he's eligible, and then if he's not, they can't miss on a guy like that. West Virginia can take 10 of those guys, and if they miss on one of them because he's not eligible, that's not the end of the world. But these Utah States and Boise States and Colorado States, like they can't miss on these guys. They don't have the money to do that, and so I don't think they're in position sometimes to give these guys a chance, like MJ Collins or some of these guys that maybe Ben Jacobson would have loved to have, Colby King would have loved to have had stay and try to recruit, but he didn't have any eligibility left. They only have limited money, and so they don't go for it. Now these bigger schools are set to benefit because they still have a ton of cash to throw around here in late July. So we'll see what happens big picture-wise. I do think it's messy. I do think, as much as I don't like it, the easy way to probably do that is just to say, you know what, just make it easy. Blanket waiver. If you want to come back and play, and this would have been your fifth year. I mean, because when you think about it, it's kind of dumb. It's like, why should let's just say, okay, Dylan Andrews at Boise State. Why should Dylan Andrews not get a fifth year just because he's a senior this year and not a senior next year? Like, the ruling changed, and I get it. Like, you're going to go back 20 years, and Tyson Tegenhart wants another year now and all this stuff. I get it. It's not going to happen. But in this case, it's all messy. It's the lawsuits, the lawyers, all this stuff. The whole thing is chaos, as everybody knows. I would just say, to make it easy, give everybody that should have one more year, and let's move on, and we'll get through this year, and then next year will be normal again. But that does open a ton of floodgates for guys that all of a sudden you never would have thought you could have got. And again, it's going to mostly probably be Power 5 schools that have all this extra money laying around that can go get them.
Well, I think then the first thing, listening to you, and I thought this too earlier in the week, I don't understand now. In hindsight, it's always 2020, but looking at what's happening now, and you're 100% correct. Anybody that's followed college athletics over the last handful of years knows, as you said, exactly what was going to happen: lawsuits, lawyers, and judges. So I don't understand why the NCAA, after they get run over endlessly, decided to put their foot down on this 2 months ago and say, we're not allowing the guys a year. I just don't understand that. I guess I could ask somebody or try and find something in an article about why it was such a big deal for them to do that. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And yeah, it's frustrating because, the thing that bothers me about it, and we'll use the Gonzaga and Dent as an example, right? I hate to see and it's nothing against Gonzaga. I hate to see some of these schools get bailed out now, right? Because all of the other everybody, they've finalized their roster. All right. Maybe some programs left a spot open. And if they did that intentionally, then that was smart on their behalf. But, what happened with Gonzaga, I'm not saying it's their fault, but that's just the way it goes sometimes, right? You lose two guys that you didn't think you were going to lose. That's a chance you took when you brought those guys in, okay? It's the game you play. And now it's certainly possible that they get bailed out with a guy falling into their lap who's an all-conference player, right? And there's other schools, too, that it's going to benefit, right? And it's not going to benefit – Gonzaga is an example, an outlier from the Mountain West and the Pac-12. Those schools are not going to benefit, right? They're going to get the second and third tier guys that nobody else wants because, as you said, the West Virginias, the Gonzagas, the other power schools, the Tennessees and the SECs and Big Tens still have money to throw at a guy if they still have a roster spot. And if not, somebody's going to just get hurt, or they'll create a roster spot for somebody because it'll make their roster better. So it's frustrating. And I don't know if I'm phrasing it properly, and I hate to say it because I don't want to single out Gonzaga, but for them to come out smelling like a rose if they get a Donovan Dent after what happened to them, it's just like, man, I don't know. To your point, teams would have done things differently 2 months ago had they known that this is the way it was going to play out. So it just bothers me. It's another mark against the NCAA, but we could go on about that for a whole episode. So
Steve says they should allow it. They're going to probably have to because, like I said, there's just so many lawsuits. I don't know what the reasoning was. Why did they say originally they weren't? Just because it was too messy and it was already the middle of May or whatever, but I don't understand why. I don't understand why they wouldn't have just done it. And I get it. Like, that does change roster things. And everyone always argues that the freshmen are the one getting hurt because that's more roster spots and less players get recruited out of high school and all that. And
Right.
I understand that. But at this point, the only people that'll benefit from this are the Power Fours that have money left, have spots left, or have already taken these guys because, like I said, if West Virginia doesn't get Javen Buchanan eligible, oh, well, they already signed Finley Bizjack and Mo Silla and all these other guys in the portal too that they know are playing. And so they don't really care. Like, and they're every single coach I've talked to for Lindy's, like literally almost every single coach in the Big 12 or even the Pac-12 in some cases, like, is like, yeah, we're still waiting to hear about one or two guys. We're still waiting on this guy. We're still waiting on this guy. Like, those guys can afford that. You can't miss if you're Colorado State. You can't miss if you're San Diego State and you're not in, maybe Gonzaga, like you said, will get lucky and they have $2 million left over from that guy that went back to overseas or whatever that they don't have to pay. I mean, they're in a perfect position here, but it's definitely something that benefits the Power Five. I'm guessing they go ahead and just blanket everybody to get it over with, like Jeff Goodman said in his tweet. And it's going to be super messy because what happens if a guy already had signed a pro contract but now wants to come back because he has another year left? Like, it's just, the whole thing's going to be crazy.
Right. Yeah.
But that's probably, if I had to guess, the way it goes, just to avoid all these lawsuits.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep our eyes on it. We'll keep reporting on it as things develop. I'm sure, as BJ and I have both kind of implied here, it's going to trend towards the guys getting eligible. And, it'll be messy, but that's what we expect out of the NCAA these days. All right.
Speaking of Boise State.
What's that?
Speaking of Boise State.
Let's talk about Boise for a minute before we get to our talk with Coach Leon Rice. Interesting year this past season. Second consecutive non-NCAA tournament season for the Broncos. They start off with a whimper, falling in their opener against a D2 program. They end the season with a whimper, really laying a massive egg against the completely depleted San Jose State team in the Mountain West Conference tournament.
You got to find me a team that had a worse start and finish than Boise. I mean, maybe ever. Because the D2 loss is already probably top 20 worst losses like in college basketball history or something. And then you throw in an 8-win San Jose State team beating them as like a 15-point underdog or something in the first round of the tournament. You put both of those together, I legit think like there might not be 5 seasons in college basketball history where a team from a Division I, like one, I'm not talking like some team top
100. A top 100 Ken Pom program.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be hyperbole, whatever, prisoner of the moment. You legit might not find more than 3 or 4 in the history of college basketball that had a combination of a start and a finish like theirs did.
I don't think there was no line, I don't think, on the Hawaii Pacific game. I saw some people afterwards saying 30 or 35 point favorite. So you're looking at like 2 games where they were combined like about 45 to 50 point favorite, and they lost both games. That's pretty bad. So they turned down any NIT or crown, didn't play in the postseason, just a complete reset, had some shuffling around on the coaching staff. Obviously, not just Buchanan, but some other guys leave the program as well.
Dude, they lost a player to Oregon, Andrew Meadow, Alabama, Drew Fielder, NC State, RJ Keene, and now West Virginia, Javen Buchanan. They have 4 Power 5 transfers, and that was what we just talked about with those that bookend of a season with 4 Power 5 transfers on their roster. But Drew Fielder got like $3 million to go to Alabama. That was a huge loss for them. Local guy that had come home, had a huge year after transferring from Georgetown. He was a massive loss for him. Andrew Meadow went to Oregon. He was kind of up and down, to be honest with you, Tom. I think some people were not like super sad to see that one go just because he was inconsistent at times and always had a ton of potential. I think he's a solid player, was a starter, a good shooter, but never really fully had the potential. Maybe wasn't great defensively for them as well. So Keene, didn't score, but obviously did some other things. And then Buchanan, if he gets cleared, is just kind of it's a tough loss, but I don't think they were planning to have him anyway because they thought he was out of eligibility. But the big one was Fielder, and the pieces just didn't fit last year. Yeah, you had Dylan Andrews. A lot of people were excited about him coming in from UCLA, and the pieces just for whatever reason didn't fit last year. And it was bad basketball for a good chunk of the year. They had the 2 worst home losses under Leon, too. They got crushed by Utah State and Grand Canyon, back-to-back home games. And then they got hot at the end of the year. They won like 7 of their last 8, which made that San Jose game just so much crazier because they were pretty hot, and they were, a lot of people thought they had a chance to make a run there in the conference tournament, and they were one of the hotter teams in the league. I think won the last 5 or something going into the conference tournament. Laid the egg there, and then, as you said, they have Tim Duryea retires. They lose Lexus Williams to Minnesota, so 2 coaches leave. But they're very excited about Will Voigt. He was the associate head coach at BYU, literally BYU's offensive coordinator, ran sets for AJ DeBansa last year, was their offensive coordinator. But his kids, he has some kids. He's not married or has an ex-wife, but I believe his ex-wife and his kids actually live in Boise. And he had been commuting a lot, and that's actually why he went to BYU a couple years ago, because it was a much shorter flight on off days and things to go from Salt Lake back to Boise. And basically, he's way overqualified for this job, has been a head coach in international basketball, is considered a very bright coach, and has been a head coach, will be a head coach some other, again, was making a lot of money and doing great things at BYU for them, and literally just perfect time, perfect place. Boise State had an opening, and he wanted to be closer to his kids and took the job. And so Boise State, it feels like he just got super lucky, to be honest, to be able to bring in Will Voigt. The offense is going to look a whole lot different next year. They brought in a lot more athletic guys with Stanback and Damari Wheeler-Thomas from North Dakota State, and some of these other guys they brought in. You're going to see a new offensive style, a little more run and gun, and just going to be a lot different. And, Mike Burns wants to get the defense back on track as well, and they brought in some dogs, so to speak, that they're all talking about there. So a lot of, the Ty Rodgers injury certainly was a bummer. They're disappointed in that. My understanding is they may even be trying to go out and still find another player to replace him. I don't know how the insurance money and all that works, but there's optimism. I mean, let's face it, Tom, like you mentioned, they missed the tournament the last 2 years. The field expanding to 76, I don't want to say it's tournament or bust, but if they don't make the tournament this year, a lot of fans in Boise are going to be very disappointed. The thing that is different this year is in the past, you got to win the Mountain West, winning the Pac-12 is not a realistic goal. It's just not. When you have right now, when you have Gonzaga and San Diego State and Utah State, you're literally hoping to finish top half. And I think if you finish top half in this league, any team really in year one has to call that probably a success, to be honest. So, a 4th or 5th place finish is the best you can do going into the season, which is a really weird scenario. And Boise State could be a pretty good team this year, but you're up against it when you talk about Gonzaga and San Diego State and some of these teams in this league. So optimism is high. They're not going to win the league, but certainly they want to try to finish in the upper half and get over 20 wins. And they got a nice schedule that we can talk about maybe after the interview. But I think there is optimism. They feel like the roster's better, new coaches. It should be different, but certainly the Ty Rodgers injury was a bummer. And they did lose a lot of production from last year. So I think there's a lot of questions. The track record for Leon says they don't usually have 2 bad seasons in a row. They usually do rebound pretty well if you look at his trajectory and his history. So there's optimism, but there's some skepticism with some in the fan base as well that are really starting to want to see some results here in terms of getting to the tournament. And then obviously, as everybody knows, advancing in the tournament, which they've never done.
Right. Yeah. Look, that'll happen with fan bases these days after 1 or 2 exemplary years, I guess. Right. But yeah, as you mentioned, I would trust Coach Rice. He has a track record of, and I really said on my last solo episode before we started this coaches series, I said my goal for Boise, I thought was to get back to the old school Leon Rice teams, his teams that didn't necessarily jump off the page with talent. They had some guys that could play, but they won games through playing together, coaching, having a toughness and a culture that lend itself towards kind of exceeding the talent that will be on the floor. So not to say they don't have good players, but maximizing what you have. And with the coaching upgrade as so it seems this year, and just a reset of some individual pieces, we'll see if they can do that. So we're going to hear from Coach Rice, but let's take a 30-second break first to hear from one of our sponsors.
The biggest contest we've ever seen.
Seriously, what's the guarantee?
They're still talking about it.
I think it's time to put the rumors to rest.
Showtime!
$30 million.
$30 million?
$30 million? $30 million?
That's $30 million guaranteed. 3 contests, multiple ways to win, no rate. Entry starting at $1,000. Enter in Nevada, play from anywhere.
Another night out west. We're talking Pac-12 basketball. We had a couple Mountain West coaches on last week, Tom. We get a chance, our first it sounds weird saying it, Pac-12 coach Leon Rice joins us on the show. Boise State coach, appreciate your time over the summer, giving us a few minutes here. How we doing?
We're doing great. It's been an exciting summer when you get a whole new group of guys, especially like the guys that we got. It's fun to get to know them. It's fun to watch them get to know each other and play together. And so it's been an exciting summer. But I was just talking to one of my old buddies that's a coach that's been around for a while, and we're reminiscing about the days of not even be able to watch your players in the summer, let alone full-blown practices. So it's really changed in that aspect.
So you are about a month in, I think, to your summer program here. You got some key returners. You got some intriguing kind of new faces. I know you're a long ways away, thankfully for having to put 5 on a court in a game. But how do you feel overall right now about the group that you have?
Yeah, you always have questions always at this time of year. And, I see some really good things. But when you're looking at a team and you have these questions, in the old days, I'd be like, well, I do know we have a known in Tyson Dagenhart will be an all-conference player. And so when you have an anchor that's already done it and been there, done it, and proven himself, it makes you feel pretty secure that you're going to have a good team. This team, I like a lot of the things I've seen, and I like the work ethic, how they're playing together. I talked about in the spring about getting hungry dogs. We got some hungry dogs. But the one thing we don't have is a bunch of guys that have been proven at this level yet. And so, that's a big difference.
Well, there's so much talk about all the newcomers, and for good reason, and we'll get to them in a little bit. But your returners, I think by some folks are getting overlooked a little bit. As you said, maybe they just haven't proven it in the stat category, in games or whatever in the past. But I know that's one of the reasons you guys are really excited about this team is some of the improvements you're expecting and next steps some of these guys are going to take. What does excite you about some of the guys coming back? And is there one guy that you think is more poised to just have a breakout season here than the others?
Well, I couldn't narrow it to one guy because I've walked out of here a lot of days, and on those different days, it was different guys. You're like, whoa, that guy looked good today. Or when you start to think, has he improved very much? Well, then he goes and has just a great day. And you're like, okay, I see it coming. And so it's been like all those returners have had those days where you're like, okay, there you go. I'm seeing it more and more. And that's usually the case. At practice, you just see it more and more and more. And then it becomes a consistent thing, and then it starts showing up in games more consistently.
Coach, let's talk about one of those newcomers you brought in. And normally in the summertime, no news is good news. So we got the opposite of that out of you guys about a month ago with the Ty Rodgers injury. He was a guy you were going to count on for leadership, veteran play, not necessarily to fill the stat sheet up, but do a lot of intangible things that help you win games. With him being out for a little bit of time here, what have you seen from some of these other guys picking up the slack in terms of that leadership? Have you seen that? Who's been the guys that kind of pick that up on the floor?
Yeah, and first I'll talk about Ty. I was fortunate to get to coach that U18 team with me and Tad Boyle and Mike Boynton. And congratulations to Mike Boynton, now the head coach of Michigan. Yeah. So, after winning a title there. And so, but the team we had was amazing. I mean, just amazing. And Ty Rodgers was a huge part of that team. And you look at those guys, most of them are in the NBA now, having success. Steph Castle, Jared McCain, Cam Whitmore, G.G. Jackson. I mean, it was a great basketball team. And like I said, Ty, I got to see Ty firsthand, and I got to see his character, his leadership, his toughness, his winning plays, like you said, all those things that have been a big part of the success of this program. We've had a lot of guys, you talk about Cardenas, you talk about Tyson and Max and, all those kind of guys that would just, Nick Duncan going all the way back. Those guys that just could make those winning plays, and those little things that don't show up in the stat sheet, but that's why you win, because you have guys like that. And so we brought Ty here for his, not just his basketball ability, but his leadership, his toughness, his character. Guess what? Because he has a knee injury, that doesn't go away. And that's why I told him, I was like, Ty, we brought you here for that other stuff. and the basketball stuff will come and we'll get him back. But man, he has been an amazing, unselfish leader because, the day after his injury, he was in the gym coaching him up. And I said to him, I'm like, hey, the good news about this injury for you, you've already proven it to me. When you're done playing basketball, and I hope it's a long, long time, you got a coaching job because he just gets it. He's great with people. He's got a great feel. High character guy. And so, but with him being hurt, it's forced us to really bring more out of the other guys that are out on the court. And so we have seen some growth there.
That's good. The guys like Rogers, they count for me for a player and a half. It's almost like you have 5.5 guys on the floor because they're a coach on the floor. So looking forward to getting him back. Good to hear that he's still providing that leadership, even though he's banged up. One of your other newcomers that's drawing a lot of rave reviews, BJ showed me a soundbite of Pearson talking about him the other day, is Standback, Jaquarius Standback, the big guy in the middle. I guess he's listed at 6'8", 215. Freak athlete. Can he handle the 5 position in the Pac-12 here? Are you looking at him at the 4? What have you seen from the big guy so far?
Well, BJ's been around our program a long time, and we, Coach Linder, myself, Coach Wojcik, that first group I had that started this program, we started positionless stuff here 16, 17 years ago. And because I just wanted to go get good players instead of, we need a 5-man. He needs to be 7 feet tall. And, need is a terrible evaluator. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to evaluate and get good players, and then we'll sort it out and figure it out. And I think that's the kind of team we have because, you just kind of tilt your head like, well, what position is that guy? I don't know. Let's get him out there. And JQ is certainly that. I swear in the first practice, he blocked more shots than we had our entire team last year, all year. And then the other day, he only blocked about 3 at practice. And I went over to him like, hey, what's going on with you? How come you've only blocked 3 shots today? And he said, Coach, they don't come at me anymore. Yep. So it's nice. And the coach, Tom, this, the days of the charge are over. Mm-hmm. So to rim protect, you got to be able to, come over and alter some shots, block some shots. Yeah. Because, in the old days, you could, if you were a little undersized, you could be smart, take a charge at an opportune time, usually on one of their better players. But now it's nearly impossible to get a charge unless the other guy takes a running start from the other baseline. And so, I think that's where our length, we don't have a 7-footer per se, but we have a bunch of guys that are, like you said, 6'8", 6'9", long, good wingspans that can make some plays that way.
Leon Rice, our guest, Boise State head. Is this 17th year, Coach?
Yes, it is.
And is that the same, by the way, as Tad Boyle? Did you guys start at the same time?
Myself, Tad Boyle, Dana Altman, all in the West Coast. We all took the jobs.
I talked to Tad the other day and was writing the Colorado preview for Lindy's, and I was like, that sounds like 17 years. Sounds like this. I was like, I didn't realize you guys are close friends, obviously, and a lot of ties and stuff, and that's cool.
And if you look at Tad, you'd think he'd been there 40 years. He just looks so much older than me.
Well, he's also been in 3 leagues, the same league twice, and
yeah, true. This is his 3rd league, just like me. Yeah. No doubt.
You're catching up, I guess, now here with number 2, though, with the Pac-12. But
this is my 3rd. Don't forget that.
That's right. The 1 year. That's right. That's right. Yeah, the good old days. Damari Wheeler-Thomas, point guard, a lot of excitement around him. You guys got him signed very early. I think might have even been like the day of the Final Four or something. You guys announced that or he committed or something. It was real before the actual portals even opened since he was a graduate guy. Just how big to get him in the mix early like that. And for fans that have watched your point guards the last several years, how is he similar, different than in terms of what he does than what you guys have had there?
Well, there is some similarities in the fact that he knows how to play the position. We've had some guys when we've had those guys like Alvaro, knows the position. Those guys are so. Lexus is another example. So maybe a little bit, in that mold because, he's a quarterback that's taken 92 games as the starting quarterback. I mean, that's a lot. So the experience is huge at that position, and he's got that, knows how to, run a team, knows how to be that point guard and leader. So so valuable. So valuable, and he can shoot and score when he needs to and wants to. So he's got a good feel on how to do both of those things and get a lot of people involved, but can go score. He can, when you need buckets, he can go get one.
Your new offensive coordinator, Will Voigt, bringing him in, I know it was kind of right place, right time, and he had some ties here with his kids being here, and I mean, he obviously coached the number 1 pick in the draft and did some great things offensively at BYU. How exciting to get him. And I heard him on with your friends Johnny and Prater last week here in Boise, and he was talking about it's going to be a much different looking offensive style than what maybe people are used to seeing around here. And I know you have your principles and things that won't change with what you guys do there, but in terms of what this is going to look like and adapting to the talent that you have, how can you maybe in layman's terms explain what fans should expect from the offense this year?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to almost, like when we had Linder here and we played that positionless, that one, we played one of those Texas schools and scored 116 points. And, I was like, God, that was good offense. Let's go back and look at that and see what the heck we did. And we didn't run one play. We just knew how to play together, get each other open, how to attack, how to move the ball. And so it'll be a little bit more like that. And then, as we go forward and start to, shape lineups and different combinations, we'll adjust to them. And when we learn their strengths, we adjust that way. But like you said, we have our principles. We're going to be great ball movers. That's a standard of this program.
Better rebound too.
Yep. We are going to be tough rebounders. I think this team could be a better offensive rebounding team than the ones we've had, because we've got numbers too. A lot of guys that are, similar. So we can kind of come at you in waves, I think, a little bit.
Coach, I want to ask you about a more college basketball centric question right now. Some big news over the weekend. Your good buddy Mark Few took a blow when the guy, his point guard, decided to go back to Spain, and we're spoiled over here, and we're not used to it happening to our programs, right? Like, we're the programs that go and get guys whenever we want them, and we don't usually lose them. So, I mean, I guess that would be like equal to you guys losing a Davidas, if that's how you pronounce it. If Butka would decide in 2 weeks he's headed back over to Eastern Europe, it puts you in a really bad spot. I mean, I'm sure you haven't really talked to Coach, although I know his son is on your staff. How do you deal with that in terms of like piecing? Is that just a gamble you have to take when you get guys from over there? Do you have protections in place? What are your thoughts on how the landscape just kind of changes week over week here?
Yeah, that's one way to put it. It does. It changes daily. And so it's just, we always just got to keep evolving and keep, what's next, figure it out, because stuff like this is more common than not nowadays, and Mark has done a great job of always kind of evolving and figuring it out. And, they'll be fine. I know it's a big loss, but they'll find a way, and they got a lot of other good players in that program. But they've developed him and they've moved him up, and there was a lot that they were going to count on with him, but they'll adjust just like they always do. But it's the new reality of, when I left Yakima to go to Gonzaga, I remember thinking, well, I'm glad I'm in a position where I don't have to recruit a whole team every year and start over every year like you had to do in junior college. That's where we are. Mm-hmm. When my best junior college teams were I got guys in August and early September, and those were the best players I got, and that had guys that had played for me there. And so kind of was used to that. I think that's what we're back to now. You just gotta step up, get in the batter's box and look at pitches and keep like, oh, here comes another one. I got to try to hit this one. But it's never going to stop. And the rules and stuff have to change for us to all get some stability. It's not good for programs. It's not good for fan bases. It's not, you want to have a Tyson Dagenhart that you watch for 4 years and that you know, and that you get to embrace. And then he gets to embrace the community and have a home. That's what's cool about this. And that's what's great. Mark, what we did at Gonzaga and what he's still doing there is those players that played there always feel like that's their home. It's that way here. My former players, this is their home, and they can always come back to it. You know, they go play overseas, maybe they get injured, well, they come back here and rehab and work with our guys and pour into our program. And that's why you stay somewhere for a long time, to have those relationships. And that's what's neat about this place. That's what's neat about Gonzaga. You know, Duke is like that. There's great programs that have had stability like that, and it's really special for the players. And so we have to change some rules where there is a little more stability and a little more sanity.
Yeah, because it like you lose that when you only have when 80% of your guys are only there for 1 or 2 years. Yeah, it's unfortunate because when you started, that's how it was. That's how I grew up watching the sport. But all right, let me ask you one more, Coach. I want to go to the non-con. 4 fewer conference games now. You're going to go from 20 last year to 16 this season. You got a nice little mini 4-team event there where you're going to play New Mexico and Santa Clara on a neutral. You got the big one against Nebraska. So you got a few quad ones in there. How do you feel about how that non-con is shaping up? Do you have any spots left? I mean, has it been tough to fill with needing those 4 extra games? What are your thoughts overall on where the schedule stands?
Yeah, it's all, scheduling is so important, and it's always been one of the hardest things, especially in places like Boise where we are isolated. I mean, you're an East Coast guy. You can drive a 100-mile radius and you're going to run into 10 schools. We drive 300-mile radius. We don't run into one. So it's harder to get, the inventory's not there. And so now you got to get 4 more. It's pretty tough. And I've got a master scheduler in Bernie. There's a reason why our numbers are always right. And there's a reason why we're, always right there on the bubble, are always right there for an at-large, because we're aggressive schedulers. And, we've got, you mentioned those games, but we also have Butler coming here. We're at Wichita State. We have, you're playing a lot of great teams, and that's the way you got to do it. And so we're attacking it with that mentality again.
And Coach, the Pac-12, you mentioned it, but now, obviously it's finally here. We've been talking about it for a year, thinking about it, what the teams are going to look like, the league, the format for the conference tournament, where's the conference tournament going to be at, all this kind of stuff. It's now, it's here. So just what do you think of year one, the Pac-12 men's basketball and how it's shaping? I mean, we're seeing even teams like Oregon State spending a lot of money and putting together rosters, and Fresno's, doing some things with Vance coming back. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to be like a year or two ago where you had a couple games where I know you had to play good every game, but there's certainly, it looks like a step up in competition, and the floor at the bottom may not be what it was in the Mountain West.
Yeah. And, we want to keep elevating this thing. And, it was really neat with that thing we did here to kind of welcome the Pac-12 into Boise and make it a kind of a big announcement day. And it got me excited. I was kind of like, oh, wow, it's here. Because, we've been talking about it and talking about conference change forever. And so you're just kind of going along doing your business and doing your same thing. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is going to be fun. And it's great for me, a new thing and new excitement. You got the regional rivalries that people will love with Washington State, Oregon State, Gonzaga, Boise State. People will like that a lot. And, I grew up a fan of Northwest sports and a fan of the Pac-12. I would love to go watch those kind of games. And I think all the fans here and at those schools all feel that way also. So some great new rivalries, great new opportunities. And, so I think it's going to add some more excitement into Extra Mile Arena.
And I guess final question, Coach, to wrap this all up, your team, you obviously trying to, push forward and make it a historic year. It's a new league, and I know you have big goals and things you want to accomplish here. I mean, how do you, again, I know it's middle of July, there's a lot to be figured out, but just how do you sum up the last, the first 10 minutes of this chat talking about your team in terms of just how you feel about this team? And obviously it didn't start or end the way you would have liked to have last year. And so how do you just feel about this group being, that group and pushing forward and doing things that haven't been done here before? Because obviously in the league schedule, I mean, a top half finish would be for any team is going to be something to be proud of in this league. I mean, it's not going to be easy at all, but how do you feel this group stacks up, you think, to reaching some of the goals you guys hope to reach?
Well, like you said, I mean, think about this. Our league has had a team in the national championship game 3 out of the last 10 years or with San Diego State, Gonzaga. And I mean, the national championship game, this is a heck of a basketball league now. And it's going to be some epic battles. Now, the thing I love about my team is they're workers. They're high character guys. They're, there's a level of athleticism maybe that we haven't had at every position like we have. So that will be a fun team to coach, a fun team to watch. And, because we're going to get after it pretty good. And that's what I wanted with this group. And I definitely think that's what we went out and got.
Well, Coach, appreciate your time. Another night out west, and I will. You'll see some of these quotes in a Lindy's magazine near you as well coming up in the fall here. We got last year's. Pearson was on the cover last year. We'll see if we can find a way to get somebody locally on the cover here this year.
And that is a basketball family tradition. When those magazines start coming out, when Lindy's comes out, me and my boys would run down to the store and get them, and they're just fun to peruse what everybody's got, and
fun to laugh at how wrong the predictions are later on, but
now you can't even laugh about, like, how can you predict who's going to do what? I mean, sometimes some teams have more coming back, but you can never know anymore those predictions, the preseason predictions, because who they brought in, how they're going to react to each other, injuries, all those kind of things that are factors that really
some of these coaches aren't like, they're like, hey, can we wait 2 weeks? Like, I don't know who's eligible yet. I don't know who we have. Like, I'm like, my deadline's next Monday. So I appreciate you at least being willing to talk this week, because I'm trying to get as many of these done as I can, because even Dutcher and some of these guys are like, I don't know who is on my team yet. Like, it's
different time. Yeah. And but I think it's going to be a fun team to watch, and a fun, style to watch with, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because I mean, we went on a 4-year stretch of averaging about 25 wins. I mean, there's a lot of, that doesn't happen by accident or by luck.
You still got 20 last year.
Yeah, we got exactly. So, but our standard keeps getting raised, and we want to keep moving that direction. And so, those things that allowed us to win a lot of games are still going to be in the program. We just adjust to the players we have. And this, like I said, this is going to be a fun team to watch.
Well, having hard workers is a good start, so I like that.
Absolutely.
I think this is your first live appearance on this show, Coach. A lot of times I played some taped interviews and stuff, but hopefully if you get a big win over Gonzaga or somebody, San Diego State next year, you can pop on postgame with Tom here and break it up. We're not the Field of 68, but we got our own little niche West Coast version of the Field of 68 with those guys. And I think Tom can rival those guys, and hopefully we can make that happen next year.
You got it. And, we love what you guys do, and it's great that you got a coach on there. So, get the
trying to educate BJ on some his biased takes on Kansas or Boise. That's it. We need to expand it. So that's what I'm here for.
There is no such thing as a non-biased opinion. So everybody's got their bias, and it's I think he does a great job of trying to stay neutral, but nobody's ever going to be neutral.
He does a great job. I'm just busting.
Yep. Which I appreciate. Yeah.
Thanks, Coach. We'll talk to you, Coach. Leon Rice.
Okay, guys.
Coach.
Have a great day.
You too. All right, that was our conversation with Boise head coach Leon Rice. Some really good stuff in there. Gracious with his time. Some of these guys, they stick to their 15 minutes. Leon, we talked to him for quite a bit off camera as well, so very gracious with his time. Some good insight there. I like the fact that, as I said at the end, he's got some hard workers. He likes his team. That's exactly what I said a few weeks ago. Get back to maybe that old, he's not the first coach and program to go through this. Jay Wright went through it too, as I'm close to Nova. When Jay Wright first came to Villanova, he built his program up that way, not necessarily with the 5-star guys. Then they had a little bit of success, and it was easier for him to attract some of those 4- and 5-star guys. Well, with some of those 4- and 5-star guys, you get some more egos, you get some headaches, you got some issues. Then you have some pieces that don't fit together. They went through some really down times. The last few years of his career, unbelievable. He wins 2 national titles. You see all his guys playing for the Knicks or wherever in the NBA. He left the sport as an icon. Well, before that time period, he had some really bad years. There were people calling for his job in Philadelphia, all kind of stuff like that, because he just started to recruit the wrong guys. Now, I'm not saying that Leon recruited the wrong guys, but I think they may have gotten away a little bit, gotten away from what built them up to that level that they were from the early 2010s all the way through the last few years, when he had the guys like Degenhart and all those, the programs that got to the tournament, couldn't get over the hump. They fell short the last couple of years. So let's see, they may not have that 5-star pedigree right now, but this might be the kind of lineup and roster that Leon really excels with.
Yeah, and I will say this, Tom, they have a lot of guys that are stepping up in competition this year. I mean, last year you had Dylan Andrews coming down, so to speak, from UCLA, Drew Fielder coming down, so to speak, from Georgetown, starting in the Big East. They added a guy from Alabama State in the SWAC in Jaquarius Standback. They added a junior college big from the North Dakota College of Sciences. I've never even heard of the school before, in Jacani Dieng. 6'9" guy, by the way, 245. Made 76 threes last year at the JUCO level, despite just a very weird, very intriguing guy that could come in and just be a guy that never plays, or a guy that could be like a sixth man. I mean, 6'9" guy, but 6'10", 6'9", like he's a post player, but he made 76 threes at a 36% clip last year for, I think it was either North Dakota or South Dakota School of Sciences junior college. So he's obviously stepping up. You mentioned Davi Budka, Lithuanian forward, transferring over from Campbell. He was at Pepperdine for a year, went to Campbell, and then is stepping up in competition for him. And then you throw in Damari Wheeler-Thomas coming over from the Summit League, North Dakota State. I would still say Boise State, Pac-12 is a step up from North Dakota State basketball. So you're getting a lot of guys that are stepping up in competition, up in level, have a chip on their shoulder, something to prove. They show up at the basketball facility and walk in that door and see how the facilities, the locker room, the practice court. We're chartering to these games. Oh, wait, what? Like we get meals, we get lunch after practice. Like there's a lot of things that there's a lot of guys that are stepping up, and we'll see what it all equates to. But you mentioned them trying to get to the old school Leon Rice. They had a game, Tom. I don't know if you remember this or not. About 4 or 5 years ago, they played San Diego State at Viejas Arena, and they won the game 42-37.
Oh yeah, I remember.
They beat it was like 20-18 at halftime or something. I mean, I was at the game, but it was the most horribly awful, beautiful game of all time. 42-37. They won a game by scoring 42 points on the road at Viejas Arena. Just seems unheard of. But that team didn't need to score. They had some games where they could score, but if they needed to go in a rock fight and just get stops and rebound, they could certainly do that. And is this team going to be, a great defensive team that's going to win games 42-37? I don't know about that, but certainly with these guys with chips on their shoulder, something to prove, the dog mentality they're looking for, and you get a guy like Standback who can just block shots from all over the court. They haven't had a rim protector in a long time, and they've never had the traditional just shot blocker. That's just something they've never really had. But if you look at some of the analytics in KenPom and numbers like 2-point defense and in the paint defense, and they just were terrible last year and didn't really do much of anything. One of the worst teams in the country in terms of defensive block percentage. They just didn't block any shots. Guys could get in the paint pretty much at ease, and it was just a real struggle for them. So they knew they needed to get a shot blocker. They bring in Standback. They got some other guys with size, and they got a lot of guys that have something to prove. And so am I, trying to say they're going to go to the Sweet 16? Of course not. But I do think this is a team that's going to mirror some of the previous teams of the past that had more success. They have a tough schedule, as you said, on the road at Wichita State, neutral court game at the Sanford Pentagon that's already sold out, I saw, for Nebraska. They do play Butler at home. They've got Nebraska. They've got Santa Clara, New Mexico. They have another MTE they're working on with North Texas and Drake. And I think the other team, I forget that your man said on the show, Rocco Miller, a couple weeks ago. They're in Idaho Falls. They've got some other games they're trying to finalize. So it's going to be a tough schedule, but I mean, everyone's super excited here in Boise. Gonzaga coming to Extra Mile Arena is going to be incredible and a sellout, and that's just going to be awesome. And so, again, they added teams to the tournament. So I certainly think reaching the tournament should be a goal. That is, it's not some crazy. Yeah. I don't think that's some crazy goal this year to think they could make the NCAA tournament. Everybody wants to talk about the 3 years in a row that they made it. That next year, they were in the championship game of the conference tournament and 40 minutes away, and it took a ridiculous effort from Nick Clifford in the home finale and then in that game to keep them. They almost made it 4 in a row, and then obviously last year they went down a little bit. But like I said, track record is They follow up a down year with a really good year. I think, again, I'm not trying to predict this team's going to win 30 games by any means, but I think they should be competitive. I think they're going to be better. I don't know what that means record-wise because the league is going to be tough this year, but I think this will be an exciting team to watch, a fun team to watch, and I would suspect them to be in a lot of games and probably right there in the bubble talk for much of the year and fighting for a spot in the tournament.
And I will add quickly, under the current format, they would have made it. By the way,
or is that crazy talk?
No, it's not. Under the current format, they would have made the tournament 2 years ago because they were one of the first 4 out. So that year they lost in the final to Colorado State. They would have made it had it been the expanded field. I don't think it's crazy talk because they were close to that 76 line last year until, throw out a couple of those bad losses, those bookend losses that we mentioned. Real quick, last thing on Boise, because I do want to get to Fresno. We still have our interview with Vance Walberg. You want to stick around for that. Some very interesting comments and stuff that we talked about. We'll break it down in a little bit. We're not going to get to all the comments here, but Steve, big New Mexico fan, he wanted us to ask Leon if he'll continue to schedule New Mexico. Again, we said at the top of the show, we recorded these in the middle of the week. It was not live. But look, here's the thing, Steve. He's got New Mexico scheduled for this year. And you heard his other comments in there. It's not easy to schedule in the Mountain Time Zone. Very limited options. He's not on the East Coast. He's not even in the Midwest or the South, where there's oodles of teams within driving distance. Forget about just a short charter, right? You got limited options in the Mountain Time Zone, even out west in the Pacific Time Zone, especially if you want to schedule good quad 1 and quad 2 teams. If Leon was open to doing it this year, I don't see why he wouldn't be open to doing it in the future. Now, does it mean that he's going to schedule a home and home? I can't say that for sure, but, I wouldn't argue with that. I take it because if you're New Mexico, you're in the same boat. You need those quad 1 and at the worst quad 2 games, as many as you can get on your schedule. So if you play Boise on a neutral floor in a 4-team MTE, wherever the hell you play them, it's a good thing. So I think it's a great sign that he played them this year, and hopefully we see it also in the future. Okay. A lot of Boise talk right there. Now let's get to some Fresno stuff. We're just going to tease it for a minute, BJ. Let's talk about it. Walberg loses basically his entire roster. Now they did show some signs of improvement from year 1 to year 2. Won a couple extra games in the league. Dropped a couple in the non-con that were disappointing. Had some really nice players. The guy obviously has an eye for talent because you mentioned the guys that Boise lost. And I think when you went over that list, they lost a guy to each of the 4 Power Fours. They lost the guy to Oregon in the Big Ten. They lost the guy to Alabama in the SEC, NC State in the ACC, and and Buchanan if he's eligible in the Big 12. So that covers the bases. Fresno, he had guys all over the place too. Guy can find talent. Can't keep them, but he can find them. So what's he got in order and on tap for this year? We'll find out after we head off for this 30-second break. Oh, you're muted.
I said I wasn't ready. Sorry. I thought I got to play the commercial. I thought we were going to talk more Fresno.
You can talk.
Let me just give a quick thought on Fresno, and then I'll be queued up here for the interview.
Go ahead.
But the point guard, Roger Fabrega or Pina, Spanish point guard. No, they really like him. They've got Dragos Lunga. They had a couple interesting guys that redshirted at Nebraska and BYU as well they're really excited about. But I know that Urpina, the point guard, played in the Sundunga FEB league, which I should know more about, but I don't. But had 6.1 assists in that league. He does a really good job. They go heavy on the international guys. They did that last year sometimes because they have connections with some agents over there, and sometimes it's cheaper and it's also sometimes it's easier to recruit those guys. But a couple other guys, Ross Candelino played at Lipscomb the last couple of years. They like him as well. Colin Schroeder, a 6'8" German forward that put up some numbers over there as well. So they got a lot of guys they like. And I think they're, pretty excited about this team over there. But again, what does that mean, Tom, in this league? If you're Fresno State basketball, it's pretty hard to imagine them, even having a solid season, finishing ahead of, almost anybody in the league. They're in a really tough boat here because they don't have the Wyoming and Air Forces of the world that they can try to beat and get some league wins. We'll see what Washington State looks like. I think Oregon State's going to surprise some people. They went and spent a lot of money in the portal we don't necessarily have their coaches lined up to come on because I'm not doing those teams for Lindy's. Same with Gonzaga, but I would like to, we talked about this, maybe wait a month till we're done with all these and then try to get those coaches on in like August or September. But I think those teams, I mean, is Fresno, I mean, I guess Texas State maybe is the one team that, but I mean, they did some things last year. So I just don't know. I like some of the pieces on Fresno's roster. Vance clearly can coach.
Right.
I just don't know if it's at all pot. What is there, 9 teams in the league?
So my goal for them, and it's not going to be easy. My goal for them was to finish in the second third. If you split it up into 3, 3, and 3, that means finish 4, 5, or 6, right? That would mean they'd have to beat 3 teams. If you got to finish ahead of Texas State and Washington State, because Texas State, Washington State, and Fresno are going to be the last 3 picked in the preseason poll if they do a preseason poll. So
I got to do my Lindy's one. So yeah, I haven't done it yet, but that's going to be probably.
I would bet money that those are the bottom 3 in the preseason media poll or however they vote. It's going to be those 3 in some order. It's not going to be easy to finish ahead of Oregon State or anybody else, but that's got to be your goal if you're Vance. Because they could finish 7th and be a pretty decent team and be better than they were last year.
Yeah, it's just crazy with this league. I mean, but I like some of their pieces. I think Vance, and I'll shut up after this, but like he had that horrible first year and he had the gambling stuff that we talked to him about and we're going to talk to him about. But like, I think a lot of people thought it was very easy, just one and done. Like it didn't work out. You got the gambling stuff. You went 6-26. He's gone, but he came back and they made pretty good improvement last year. Yeah. I mean, they were and even in some of the games they lost, they were very competitive and they were not a pushover in most of the games they played. I mean, I think certainly, he was getting some love for coach of the year. I know early in the year. And I mean, I know he, obviously wasn't going to win, but I thought he did a really nice job. They showed a lot of improvement, but it is pretty much a completely new roster again. But I mean, year 3 is what you hear from a lot of coaches. Like you lay your foundation. Year 1, you just try to survive. Year 2, you kind of lay your foundation, but year 3 is when a lot of people expect to see some results. They do have like 12 new players though. So I'm intrigued to see what they can do. I think that probably will maybe be better than last year. Probably, I don't know, but or similar. But what that means record-wise in this league, I think the verdict's still out. Yeah, for sure. But let's stick around. A lot of good stuff here. We teased plenty of it already. Don't miss the gambling talk. He calls out players for throwing games. It's one of the great moments in BNN history probably during this interview. Don't miss it. Yeah. Yeah, come on back, 30 seconds.
The biggest contest we've ever seen.
Seriously, what's the guarantee?
They're still talking about it.
I think it's time to put the rumors to rest.
Showtime.
$30 million.
$30 million?
$30 million? $30 million?
That's $30 million guaranteed. 3 contests, multiple ways to win, no rate. Entry starting at $1,000. Enter in Nevada, play from anywhere.
All right, we're back here on another night out west. Our coaches interview series continues. Have BJ with me, and joining us tonight is the head coach of the Fresno State Bulldogs, Vance Walberg. Vance now in his 3rd year. Fresno, one of the schools making a transition from the Mountain West to the Pac-12. Coach, thanks for joining us here. How's things going out there?
Going good. We got 13 of the 15 players here, so a little bit better than last summer. We got like 4 of them, in August, so feeling a little bit better that way.
Yeah, and you mentioned we were talking off air a little bit, so you have a little bit of time here, a couple more weeks of practice in the summer, and then you're taking the guys down to the Bahamas you get those trips, every 3 or 4 years, and you're going to take the guys down there and get some game action in the Bahamas?
Yeah, actually, they changed the rule this year. You can go every year now. You can go every year. And the main reason I want to do it is just, you get 10 days of practice, which I think is real critical, especially for us, because we have 14 new players. So getting that extra practice and getting just a few, you're playing against some semi-pro guys and so forth, but just the experience, then the team bonding, I think, is really good.
What for you, Vance? Being back here for going into year 3 here. I mean, now just how are you looking at what you're trying to build here, and what it's just so hard, obviously, with what's going on with the portal and keeping guys and the continuity, and obviously for you, as you said, pretty much a completely new team. Does it? I mean, is it any different year 3 than year 2 or year 1, or because it's an all new team, it's like you're starting over yet again?
Well, it's not that in a way you're starting over, but you're really, for me, it really not. 2 years in the league kind of helped. Your first year in that league, I don't know the different coaches. They don't know me. It's a whole completely different style. So last year I felt a little bit more comfortable. And obviously this year, going to the Pac-12, when I was at Pepperdine, I played against Gonzaga, so I know what they're like. We played Washington State a couple of years ago. So you got Washington State, Oregon State. I know nothing about Texas State, but obviously the four other schools coming from the Mountain West are very powerful programs. So it's going to be a very nice league.
Vance, we're going to dive into some of the individual players here in a minute, but what is the hardest part about just having a completely new team pretty much every year?
Well, I coached JC basketball, so JC basketball is a lot. This is a lot like it. You're going to get a high turnover. I knew we were going to lose a lot of our guys. I didn't expect to lose all 14. We lost 14. The only one that came back this year was Nathan Zulemi, who tore his ACL in the exhibition. So he didn't even play last year. So basically, I don't have one guy back that had any experience from last year. But again, it is what it is. You just got to be able to accept it. Get them. I'm hoping at the end of this year, maybe we can keep 3 or 4 kids. It would be nice.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about, Coach. So is DJ, do you have DJ still?
DJ Stickman or DJ Douglas?
Stickman.
DJ Stickman is a tough one for me because he played for me in high school.
Right.
I've known him since 4th grade. But, if you remember at the end of last year against Colorado State, he tore his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not going to be back till early January. So we're going to he's going to kind of redshirt on his own this year because we've had so many injuries the last 2 years that I can't afford one of those 15 spots for somebody that's going to come back in January.
Right.
So actually DJ will be with us the following year, but not this year.
I see. Okay. Because I know you had mentioned that Nathan was your only returner, but I knew Stickman was giving you good minutes at the start of the year, and I wasn't sure what his injury status was. So let's dig into a couple of these. You got, as you mentioned, we already said how many newcomers you got. Some of they're from all over. You got some Europeans in there. You got some freshmen. You got some guys who redshirted last year but have some pretty good pedigree. A couple of those, Quentin Rhymes comes over. He redshirted at Nebraska. No shame in not getting on the floor for Nebraska last year as a Sweet 16 team. Same thing with KJ Perry. No shame in not getting on the floor and having a redshirt at BYU. Are those a couple of the guys that you're looking for to be like your go-to guys next year?
I would say KJ's there. Quentin, I think, is, again, KJ played, in JC, so he got a little bit of experience there. Quentin not playing last year. I think, he's going to be a very good player. Just like a lot of young kids, it depends on when they can put it all together. But I think, KJ, and then we have a Spanish guard that we got, Roger Fabrego or Pina. Him and KJ are going to play that point position. Roger's more of a true point. KJ's more of a scoring point.
I was going to ask you about Roger. Tell us a little more about him. Then I know Dragos, is it Lungu from UT Martin? And then you had Ross Candelino from Lipscomb transfer as well. Who are a couple other guys, if you had to play a game tomorrow that, you feel confident are key guys, either starters or key players for you?
Okay. Well, Dragos is going to be, he's actually a 6'6" point guard. He's I like playing 2 point guards at one time. He'll be that second point guard on the floor. Very crafty, very smooth. I think he's going to be one that people are going to enjoy watching. Ross Candelino, like you said there, BJ, he's going to be just a solid player. He's open. He shoots the ball pretty well. I think it was right around 40% last year from the 3. The other thing he does very well, for a 6'4" guard is that, he averaged a little bit over 5.2, 5.3 rebounds a game playing 24 minutes. So he does a good job that way. We also picked up the big kid from Cal Baptist, Brady Henneke. Brady's a 7-footer who I think is going to give us some good minutes there. And then, we got Brian Amaniki back, who was with us 2 years ago. Brian was at Wichita State. He's getting better each day. I think it's going to be for us more by committee than anything else. I don't think we have any superstars, but I think we got more. We definitely have more depth than we've had since I've been here.
Your first year, coach, 6-26 and 2-18 in the league. And I remember, greeting you when the bus arrived in Boise. And I said, hey, coach, I'm really enjoying watching you guys play. And you said, no, you're not. And, you were joking. And I know it was a really tough first year there, but you made so much progress last year in year two. And you were competitive, even in some of the games you lost, were right down to the wire. And, to get up to 13 wins and to go 7-13 and have the 5-win improvement in the league. I think a lot of people, there was people on our show at one point midway through the season were saying you should be Mountain West Coach of the Year. With what you were doing there. So how do you, when you make that progress and then all of a sudden you're kind of starting back over with a new team, how do you continue to try to build that? What do you see this year as a successful season? How do you look at expectations, as you're trying to build this thing, but you are kind of starting over, so to speak?
I think it comes down to the culture. I think last year the culture was a much better. I think this year it's even going to be better than it was last year. We got a very good, hardworking group of players. And one of the big reasons I wanted to go to the Bahamas was so I could get extra time with them. And I think this extra time is really going to help us. I know some coaches, it might feel like it's too much during the summertime, but when you get these guys only for 7-8 months, I think you need to get the most out of them. And I've been really very impressed with how hard the kids have been working and their dedication. So we can keep that going. We'll get better and better. That I promise you.
Well, the one area I really think it helps, Coach, is the start of the season. Look, when you have an entirely new roster, you get into those non-conference games in November and you want to build some confidence. It's pretty darn difficult when you got guys out there and you're not sure how they're going to play together. So a few games here against some good competition will kind of iron a little bit of that out. Can you speak to that? Is that what you're kind of hoping for here in addition to just the team bonding to get off to a good start in November? What's that going to look like?
No, you're exactly right, Tom. I know last year I gave away 1 or 2 early games because I was trying to play different people to see what they can do and so forth. This will kind of help to where, get that experience there. And then this year we get 3 scrimmages instead of 2. And I think that will also help. So hopefully we're a little bit more ready come those first, those non-league games. But and I know, especially, in our league's position, you got to win as many games as you can. You can't afford to give away games. And last year, I'll be honest with you, we lost 7 games like 5 or less. And that really, that really bit us in the tail. Let alone, like you said, I thought my second best player, Nathan Zulemi, we lost him in the exhibition, and DJ Douglas fractures his knee, then DJ Stickman blows an ACL, then Zayon Collins is out the last 6 games. We just keep getting hit with these injuries. I'm just hoping that we can just, you're going to lose some kids, a couple of sprained ankles here and there, but hopefully no season-ending injuries.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed there. I want to ask you one more. The Save Mart Center. You guys, I'm sure you know this. You'd like to get a little bit more of a home court advantage there. You guys had a game in the back half of the year where you were honoring a past team, and the place really got kind of packed and loud and had an impact on the game. What do you need to do? Winning is the obvious answer, but how can you get a more consistent home court there where they can have an impact? Because, it matters in this league. You go to so many places that are going to be difficult to play. You got to try to take advantage of that yourself, right?
I agree. But again, I think you hit it on the head. You win Fresno. We're a type of town. I was in Philly when we went through that process. Okay, with the 76ers. And I know what it was like when we were losing there, how the fans were. Here, the fans, not that they're bad fans. Just like most fans, if you win, they're going to be there. They want to see a winning product out on the floor. I think we're going to give them a pretty exciting product, and I think, this league is going to be pretty dang tough from top to bottom, So, again, I think the only way that we're going to get people in there is we got to put a winning product on that floor.
Well, Coach, final thing for me, and I mentioned earlier, I am doing Lindy's magazine here, and they've got me doing some of these side stories too, and I'm not a topic I'm sure you love talking about, but they got me doing a story on sports gambling, and I know your program did have some ties to that in the past, and I don't know how much you're willing to say, but I talked to a couple other coaches that have states where it's legalized now, and just the problems that come from that, and it's a coach that had players that were caught up in that. What do you think of just what it's become now and the prop bets and all that kind of stuff? And what are your thoughts and how are you guys trying to educate and with what's going on? Because that's certainly become a a hot topic here the last couple of years as more states continue to legalize it.
Yeah, again, I'm with the BJ. In my life, I never would have, this is my story, my 49th year. I never would have ever guessed in my life that somebody on your team is going to bet on a game. It's something that never, ever crossed my mind. We talk about it that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's one of those things you just expect that to happen. In our situation here, when we had Michael Robinson do what he did, Michael, I guess, was the main culprit on that. It's disheartening. It's disheartening to know that you have one of your players going out there playing on the under, which means he's not trying to help you win. I mean, it's when you look back at, and I'll be honest with you, I just saw the article 3 days ago. I never even knew any of that stuff. When we went through this whole process, they kept me completely out of the loop. They wouldn't let me know anything. They wouldn't let any of us know anything. So what I read 3 days ago on ESPN is the first time I even knew about him betting on the unders.
Wow.
And so forth. So it was tough to swallow on that. As far as the prop bets, I think it's a joke. Let's be honest. Who's going to bet on Michael Robinson? Okay, except for Michael Robinson and his family. To me, there should be no prop bets. There should be no prop bets whatsoever, personally, in college basketball. I think that's a joke. I think you put too much pressure on kids and their families and their friends and so forth. But just think about how easy is it for somebody just to play one game where I'm not going to score those points. I just think it creates too much of a problem. That's me.
Not
personally.
battle for that extra rebound or just not.
That's right.
I mean, and you obviously you're saying you didn't know about it, so you never thought that to be the case, or you never saw guys not trying or anything like that. And I guess you don't. I guess you never know, right? Or maybe now you have to wonder. Any game you watch, if a guy doesn't go for a loose ball, you're like, oh, wonder which side he took, right? I mean,
well, I'll give you a long story on that. After the Colorado State game, we're playing Utah State, and this is my first year, and we're god awful. We're up 17 in the first half on Utah State at Utah State. They obviously come back. We're up at halftime. Start the second half. Michael throws a pass to their team, and the next day in film session with my coaches, I said if I didn't know better, he had goddamn money on this game.
Oh man!
And then 3 days later, I get a phone call, and anonymous phone call saying you got players on your team betting, and that's when the whole process started and so forth. So it was interesting. It was interesting.
Wild.
And there's no. I mean, is that the easiest way? Just eliminate prop bets? Is that the easiest way? I mean, I know all the old scandals with point shaving and all that. I mean, I think a lot of people thought the NIL, would maybe help a little of that because these kids aren't that desperate for another $5 or $10 grand anymore. But is that do you think that's changed anything or not? Or
well, I mean, take a look at the pros. You got the guys in the pros that have got caught up for again how much they make millions on millions and they're doing it. I just I just think prop bets completely should be out of college. I think totally out of college. I think they should be out. The regular game, betting on the game and the spread, that's I think everybody's choice or whatever. But the prop bets, I think, it just puts too much pressure on kids.
Is that the final thing, I guess? Is that the biggest issue right now that you see, or is it the NIL money getting out of hand and maybe the discrepancies in what teams can do? Or is there another? I mean, what do you see as kind of the biggest kind of you mentioned 49 years of, I know, different levels, but obviously seeing a lot at different levels. What do you see as the biggest issue with the college game right now and how it can be fixed?
I think number one's the portal. More honestly, I think it's the portal more than it's the NIL. I think they should get one move. If the coach moves, give him a second one. But I think when you can let a kid go to 4 or 5 different schools in 4 or 5 years, what are we teaching them? There's no loyalty. There's no, all you're doing is chasing that money. So I think that's number one. And then number two, obviously the NIL. They do deserve money. How crazy it's become. I mean, I talked to some coaches over the weekend, they're up in the 24, 25, $26 million range, for their team for the year. And that's a lot of money. At Fresno State, my 3 years here, we've gotten $0 for NIL in 3 years. So for us to compete in the Pac-12, we're going to need some help. Because we just can't do it, just trying to get kids to play for the sake of playing.
Yeah. Coach, we really appreciate your insight onto those topics. They hit home for you, pretty close to home there. Appreciate you sharing that story. And we appreciate you joining us here on Another Night Out West to go over kind of an entirely new experiment here for Fresno, new league, new roster. Hopefully you can keep the momentum going from year 2 to year 3 like you did from year 1 to year 2. And like we've told all of our guests on here so far, you came on last year a couple of times with us after some W's. So let's get some W's in a winner, and we'll be glad to have you back on here after in a January night after a nice W in the league.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, Coach,
are they going to do a media days, Coach? They're not doing a football media days this year for the Pac-12. I would love to see you down in Vegas, and if we can get Tom out there and do this in person in October. We don't want to wait till January to have you on.
No, I asked. We had the Pac-12. I think it's one of the top people, and they said there will be a media basketball day.
Okay,
they said there would be. So hopefully, I don't know where it's going to be. I hope it's Vegas, but
we all do.
So, hey, get away from that gambling.
That's funny. That's funny. All right, Coach. Thanks for your time. Best of luck. Enjoy the Bahamas for the bonding and the action, and enjoy that trip. And we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bad
time for a gambling reference there.
Funny. That just kind of it. But you know what? It comes full circle there. Like, you know, it's like you wonder. It's like the joke you see on social media all the time. Whenever anybody gets that, you know, somebody wants to reprimand somebody for gambling. You know, the comment on social media is then somebody jokes that is sponsored by DraftKings because all the leagues want to crack down on it, but they're all sponsored by gambling companies. So it's like, yeah, you can't get away from it. So it's like that's a chicken or the egg here. Why, you know, how's it happening? Why is it happening? But I mean, listen, that was some incredible stuff right there. As the kids would say these days, BJ, Michael Robinson in there catching some strays, right? You know, the guy's been off the radar for 2 years, and here he is all of a sudden now he's getting thrown under the bus.
I don't know what the better part was where he goes, let's be honest, who would bet on Mikel Robinson other than Mikel Robinson's family?
The funny thing is I must be getting somewhat good at this because as I'm watching the interview there and you know, we're off camera, I'm finding myself like laughing, and I'm wondering, how the hell did I not laugh when we were doing this? Because like he's saying truthful things, but it's funny, right? I mean, it's scary. You know, first thing he said, never in his 50 years of coaching did he think that this was something he'd have to deal with, right? And it's not, you know, all the things that we talked to, you know, Leon wants to talk about how, the recruiting is different, right? And assembling rosters is different. And you know, look at what Coach Walberg has to deal with. Like, this isn't something that you thought you had to deal with 30 years ago, right? So it's just an entirely different, animal. We appreciate Coach Walberg being pretty, transparent with some of the stuff that went on there. And, total side topic because it was for your preview article, but man, really interesting stuff there.
I wasn't sure what he'd say about it because, it's a bad look for – I know he wasn't involved in it, whatever, but, the headlines were Fresno State players betting on unders and things like that, and they were talking to a player, I believe that was at San Jose State or had transferred somewhere, and they were, betting on each other's unders, and there was, a group, thing, but, yeah, he wrote the first, they call it the lead to my story, the first couple paragraphs. He basically wrote for me. I will be using the part about that he was in the film session saying if I didn't know any better, this, he threw the game with the pass. And then sure enough, 3 days later, it comes out that he did indeed maybe throw the game. And so, that was very good stuff. And we've asked a couple other coaches about that. I asked Ted Boyle about it, and then, might ask Ali Farouk-Namesh about it for the story next week. But just when we're combining this with Lindy's, that's just the way it works. And that is one of the side stories they got me doing. But great stuff. He was honest about it. I do agree the prop bets are kind of crazy. I know they hoped that when NIL started, Tom, that it would kind of curtail some of that. Cause $5,000 used to be a ton of money, or a couple $1,000 is all you had to pay a kid to, hey, win, but don't win by more than 8, or whatever else. It happened way more probably than we will ever know.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you thought with NIL, with guys getting millions of dollars, you don't have to do that anymore. And when you do look and see, Tom, where are all these things happening? It's at Fresno State where he says there's no NIL. It's at, New Orleans or all these schools where the guys probably are not getting NIL money. So I do think the guys that are getting paid don't need to do that anymore and don't need to think about that anymore. But there will always be guys, there will always be guys that I think, can be tempted by that for the right price. And it is what it is. And that's kind of the theme of the story. But yeah, he was not afraid to. I want to kind of reach out to Mikkel Robinson, I guess, and find out his thoughts. But
as the old school WWF guy, the $1 Million Man would say, everybody's got a price. Now you mentioned BJ, right? Startling comment there from the basketball perspective. Now, the gambling thing, interesting, doesn't really impact Fresno moving forward. The basketball piece there, what you just said that Vance mentioned, no NIL dollars, right? We just talked 45 minutes ago about how Gonzaga, all they have to do is make one phone call if they want to get Donovan Dent up there. I'm not saying it's going to be that easy, but put those things against each other, right? Contrast those where you have a program like Gonzaga who they lose a potential all-conference guy to Spain that's going to get $4 million in Spain. Oh, well, we'll just go get this guy because we have $2 million we can pay Donovan Dent. Meanwhile, Vance Walberg is sitting there. He's got no NIL dollars in 3 years. So
now I think that's a little. I mean, they have a collective, I believe. I think they're still paying these guys a little money, but in terms of like NIL rev share from the school, that is pretty startling to hear him say zero. When he said that live, I kind of missed it, I guess, but I was sitting there watching the interview back. Which, by the way, on YouTube, I think folks hopefully know this and do this, but you can watch us essentially anywhere on YouTube. And so if you have a smart TV, you don't have to watch us on your phone or your computer. You can put us on your big screen TV and then you can still text or use your phone or whatever for all these other shows. I actually have it on my big screen out there in the other room. So I went out to the couch for a minute. My wife's watching this show. I got us on just what they need to see this, gray beard on a 70-inch.
They don't want these mugs on here, but that's
70-inch big screen. I saw my beard. I was like, wow, it's starting to get, I got to shave that. But I'm watching it out there and he said that and I'm like, zero NIL dollars? Like, that just seems crazy to me for even a school. I know Fresno State isn't a basketball powerhouse by any means, but you're in the Mountain West. You're in the Pac-12, and with what the football program's done at Fresno, like, you're still a program that should have a little bit of money. That was startling to me to hear him say that. And they do have a little bit of money through collectives and things, but the straight money from the school, that was crazy.
But it's a shame. Like, the guy knows his basketball, right? He's been he's been in professional basketball. People forget he was kind of really the inventor or creator of the dribble drive offense, like way back 20 plus years ago, before Calipari mastered it at Kentucky. He created this whole dribble drive offense, right? And he's kind of been like forgotten about. And most of his success came in the JUCO and high school ranks. He had an unsuccessful short little tenure. I believe it was at Pepperdine like a decade-ish ago. It was a surprise hire at Fresno. But I asked him in that interview about the home support. They don't get a lot of fans there at all at Fresno. He mentioned in there the lack of funds. So the program, it's similar, let's be honest, it's similar to like a San Jose State, right? Very little fan attention and whatever. Same thing with resources. How are you going to compete with the Gonzagas, San Diego States, Utah States? Same way San Jose State. How are they going to compete with New Mexico and Grand Canyon and UNLV, Nevada, whoever, right? It's difficult because he's got to turn his whole roster over. And I hate to say it, but what's going to happen? Vance is going to develop a handful of guys coming up in this next season. And they're probably going to split town in 9 months and be in big-time programs again, just like the batch did last year. So, I mean, I guess it's a football school first. But, man, I like to see them get a little bit more support because I'd like to see what Vance could do if he had a supported program, much the same that we would talk about Tim Miles.
And the problem is, and I've been there a couple times, the Save Mart Center is just massive. It's too big. It's actually a really nice arena. It reminds me very similar to like a Thomas and Mack Center, but I mean, it's just way too big. And it's got the row of suites or whatever, so to speak. And it's got the upper deck, or at least I don't know if it has suites, but at least has an upper deck. It has a second level on top of it. And it's just too big. And whether they curtain it off sometimes or whatever, but I mean, part of the problem is it's just way too big in an arena that they'll never fill. And so, it's tough there. It certainly is a football football first program. But, they had, was it Orlando Robinson? I mean, obviously they had Paul George, right, way back in the day. I mean, they've had some players there, and they have a little bit of basketball history for sure. But it's been tough for them, and hopefully they can get some support. And I know that was one of the reasons Vance was hired, is because he has some connections being a high school coach there, and thought they could bring in some money and bring the fans back and everything, and hasn't necessarily happened. But as you know, winning program, winning team, you'll bring the fans back. And it's a nice venue. I don't mind it. It's just big, but it's nice, and it's a good, a lot of good seats. Get down by the court close and watch a game. And as I always mention, anytime you mention Fresno, you got to mention the Doghouse Grill right across the street there. The tri-tip sandwich there is legendary, Tom. So one of these years, maybe next year, once we get over 1,000 subscribers, Tom, and we can start raking in the dough on this podcast here, we'll do like a road trip thing where we'll get Tom to just go visit every Pac-12 and watch a game and do a live show after the game, maybe, and we'll get you to the Doghouse Grill in Fresno at some point. But no, I think they're going to, like I said, I think they're going to be decent this year. I do. But what does decent mean in the Pac-12? That could still mean if there's 16 games, decent could still be 5-11 or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it's just going to be tough for them. It's uphill sledding in this league for sure.
Well, one of the things that I asked him about, and he talked about, is he said he basically gave away a couple non-con games last year, experimenting with lineups. I remember they were playing good basketball. There were probably 3 games that I was like, trying to get all the teams to win the non-con to boost the net and Ken Palms, right? And I remember they had 2 or 3 that they really should have won, not to help, not that they were going to get in postseason mix, but to help their metrics. Now they're going to play 16 non-conference games, okay? All of November and December with the shorter conference schedule. Breaking in an entirely new roster. Because for several reasons, don't normally schedule that tough the way a Boise or a San Diego State or whoever might, okay? So this is an opportunity for them to pile the wins up right there, right? Like I think it's a little much to ask for them to get into postseason kind of bubble talk. But if a successful season for Coach would look like 500, right? So if you can go 10-6, and I don't think that's a lot to ask, because again, I don't know any games, but last year they took 1 road trip to Arkansas and got drilled. Their MTE was one of the lower end Acrisure ones, and they started to play good basketball there. They ripped off a few good wins in a row, had a successful non-conference season. I believe they finished 6-5 in the non-con. If they can go 10-6 in the non-con, that would require them to win probably 6 games in conference play to get to 500. I mean, 6 might be a little ambitious, but why not? You can win 6 games and go 6-10 in conference play, 10-6 out of conference, you're 500. That should be a realistic goal. Now he's got to stay healthy. Some of these guys that are unknowns, they're going to have to contribute. They're going to have to play well. But look, that's part of the deal, right? Otherwise, as much as we like Coach, you, myself, he's going to find himself, on the hot seat, because as you said, it's his 3rd year. It's college athletics in 2026. Programs don't wait around a long time, right? And they're in a new league. And if it's an underwhelming year, the hot seat chatter is going to pick up a little bit. But I like Coach. He knows the game. He's got a good head on his shoulders. I like what he wants to get going there, what he wants to do. It's just a matter of kind of his guys perform a little bit. So I don't know. We did have BJ, our first, I think, our first Fresno commenter viewer in here.
Beware of the Bulldogs podcast. Let's give them some love.
I've seen that on socials before, football and basketball, Fresno backer. So appreciate you being in here. JNR, a longtime viewer, great episode. We did run long here, but I thought, and BJ and I were actually talking about this a little bit ago, Big Wade, you're welcome. Thanks for watching. Appreciate all you guys watching for the entirety of the episode. But this was jam-packed. There was a lot of stuff in here. Obviously Boise and Fresno centric, so it was a Pac-12 based episode. Last week we did a lot on the Mountain West with New Mexico and Air Force on here. We're going to
split it next week, right?
Yeah, I believe we're going to split. It should be the border war rivalry. I think we're slated to have Coach for Oakmanesh and Coach Sundance, so we should get one from each. That way we'll kind of split it up, and the border war fans can duke it out a little bit. But, look, we went long, but I thought this was a fantastic episode. Appreciate everybody sticking in there for the entirety of it. even if you're watching later on in the week, that's fine as well. As BJ said, put it on your TV or wherever.
Hold on, we got to get Jordan's question here. Rank the Pac-12 road trips: Logan, Pullman, Spokane, Corvallis, and I guess he's talking like maybe he didn't put Fresno on there, by the way. No Fresno, no road trip, I guess, but I guess he's if you're in Boise, those are all drivable, I guess, and he's a Boise State fan. Appreciate Jordan for watching, but you got Pullman 5-6 hours, Spokane's up there 6 hours, Corvallis 7-8 hours, but drivable, and then Logan's about 4 hours. For convenience wise, Logan's obviously the shortest, and I've been there the most, obviously, of those three, but it's you don't really spend nothing against Logan. It's just not really a town that it's beautiful coming over the Cache Valley there and the mountains and stuff, but it's not a town where there's like a ton of great bars or restaurants or much to do. You just go there for the game and then you kind of leave. So I don't know, but I would say Pullman is a cool town. Corvallis. I've been to Spokane a couple times, but I never got it as like a party town type thing. So I would maybe go Pullman, Corvallis, Spokane, Logan. What do you think of that?
Well, my experience, I don't know anything about the travel. I know Corvallis is beautiful in the fall and the spring because I've watched football games there and baseball games there. And I know the weather, I don't know about the extremes in the winter, but that seems like a nice college town. I don't have a lot of experience with Pullman. Obviously, Spokane, the only thing I know about it is the hoops. So, I mean, yeah, I know BYU. Utah State is the closest drive. I know that's the old rivalry there with Boise. So, I don't know. I mean, how do you enjoy your car rides? 5 hours, I think most of us enjoy 2-3 hour car rides.
Yeah. We spent plenty of time talking Boise already. Appreciate you for watching, though. You can go back and watch all of our thoughts on Boise at the beginning of the show, but should be a fun team to watch. Should be right there in the mix for a bubble team for the tournament, I think was kind of what we said.
Yeah, pretty much. As BJ said, go back and watch. Plenty of stuff in here. I think we're going to try to get these clipped so you can watch them separate, but watch the whole episode, watch the clip, share them out. I'll retweet it out tomorrow probably again. This was a jam-packed episode. We went for an hour and 40 on here. This is one of the longer episodes. This rivals one of the ones.
Doesn't feel like that, though. Doesn't feel like that.
No,
the
it
interviews
doesn't.
Just went long. When you have two interviews that are each 22 minutes or whatever, that takes.
This rivals one that when Grammer was on here. When that's how we go that long when Grammer's on here. But yeah.
Hey, I liked hearing that from Vance though, talking about maybe having a media days. That the Pac-12 was getting a lot of crap for being the only conference that didn't have a football media days. If they do one for basketball, that'd be pretty cool. If we could, start the hashtag again, get Tom to Vegas. And we get Tom out there for media days and get Tom out at the Circa pool doing a show maybe and have some fun out there.
Yeah, I do. I like that. I like the sound of that. What do you think? So late September or are they going to early October?
Like mid-October.
Mid-October.
Yeah, October 15th, somewhere around there, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's not bad. We got breaking news. Coach Walberg breaking the news on there. Although I wouldn't say it's official, but it seemed to be the plan that they're planning to have a media day. So that would be nice and the first ever Pac-12, this edition of the Pac-12. So
make sure on the way out here, guys, give us the subscription on YouTube, like us on YouTube. If you're watching as 15, 20 of you right now on the BNN YouTube channel, make sure you switch over to the Another Night channel. Give us a subscription, please. We're trying to get over 1,000 subscribers on the new Another Night Out West channel so we can monetize that. I do have hope, Tom, of having some football content as well. I'd like to have Pac-12, Mountain West, another night, Saturday night recaps or football shows throughout the week. I'd love to have some football coverage as well. We're still trying to find the right host for that. I'm trying to find the Coach Tom Mosser of the football side of this. Still looking for that, but would love to have some football coverage on this channel. We're obviously going to have a ton of basketball coverage on this channel, Pac-12, Mountain West, you name it. But if you're watching on Twitter, if you're watching on the BNN YouTube, switch over to Another Night Out West, or at least on your way out, go over there and find it. You see it at the bottom there on the crawl, youtube.com/@Another Night Out West. Subscribe on that channel and watch every Sunday at 8 and help us get over 1,000 subscribers so we can get Tom paid.
Wow, we would appreciate that. We appreciate all you guys watching.
A little bit. We're paying you a little bit as it is. We'd like to pay you more if we can get over 1,000 here.
That's right. Listen to the man. Listen to the man. Appreciate all of you guys watching, sticking with it for the entirety of the show. Great jam-packed episode. Share it out. Tell your friends. Tell your non-friends. And come back next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. BJ, thanks for being here. You guys enjoy your week. And we'll catch you guys next week. See ya.